Brace yourself.
Helltaker definitely came out of nowhere, at least it feels that way. There are many outlets nowadays that have given indie developers a chance to release a game for free, but seeing a game like this appear on Steam isn't something to scoff at. Very much like Doki Doki Literature Club did back in 2017, Helltaker humbly appeared on the service without an asking price to show for it, yet gained almost immediate popularity. But very much unlike Doki Doki Literature Club, which had some stealthily higher narrative ambitions, Helltaker is a much more grounded, more gamey game. It prides itself on simple, easy-to-iterate gameplay, but never so much that the game escapes the quiet niche nature of a valued freeware property on one of the biggest digital download services on PC. Whether you're down with Demon Girls or not, Helltaker is a curious experiment, one that I doubt will fade into obscurity as 2020 rolls forward. It doesn't take too much insight to see that Helltaker prides itself on its cast of characters. You could even say that the game coasts on its demon waifus if you're willing to be a bit harsher. During the short time the game's been available on Steam, there have been plenty of fan creations depicting the cast, more than anyone can count at this point. However, the various members of your hellish harem, despite the game's pretty standard color palette, have plenty of diversity in their designs, each one reflecting their defining personalities. Modeus's mesmerized lust contrasts greatly with Justice's almost intimidatingly suave attitude. No one really stands out as a wasted opportunity, and considering how brief the game is, it's impressive at how much the characters' personalities stick with you. I especially credit the game's epilogue, where the entire harem hangs around the Helltaker's house, adding that slice of life angle to an already eclectic cast of demon dames. It's a game that's so inviting, but not pandering to its inevitable fanbase. Constantly playful in nature and delivering some not-so-subtle jabs at the harem visual novel subgenre as well. Helltaker's actual gameplay mechanics, though, are about as simple as you can get. You just need to reach the objective at the end of each stage, but getting there is no easy feat. Not only are there spike traps, enemies, and locked doors to impede progress, but you have a move counter, which when depleted results in a stage failure. Several of the obstacles take away extra moves from your reserve, so it's about examining the environment and using your available moves wisely. The game doesn't hesitate putting you into the heat of puzzle hell thanks to a surprising lack of conveyance. Cracked rocks can be pushed, enemies can be attacked and destroyed, spike traps either stay active or change as you move depending on the stage's limitations. While the actual controls are easy to figure out, Helltaker is a game that practically requires multiple tries to understand the ins and outs of the new environmental mechanics. That's not the worst thing, but it would be better if the mechanics were spelled out more clearly before the player even makes a move. Fortunately, the lack of intrusive tutorials is a nice touch, keeping things moving smoothly. A game this short really doesn't need anything slowing things down, it should be under the player's preferred pacing. But that brings up a rather interesting point. In my experience, these types of puzzle games are often challenged by conflicting mental patterns. There's an odd state of mind that occurs when a solution appears simply by the player messing around with the different actions instead of some pre-planned procedure that's devised before even making a move. It's nothing new, and many of the most well-received games of the genre can undergo this phenomenon, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Different minds operate in different ways. Someone who fiddles around with the moves on the fly can get just as far as someone who preemptively contemplates every individual move. It really comes down to how you want your pacing to proceed, because being able to reset the stage with the push of a button is an angelic blessing during what can become hellish challenges. The difficulty spikes significantly during the final few levels of the game, getting dangerously close to your own personal hell. Most of my playthrough, in fact, was spent on the final puzzle stage, which remains a deceptively devious challenge. Restarting a stage is just a hair slower than a game like this could probably work best with, but Helltaker doesn't punish you severely for a failed attempt. You can dive right back into the action without wasting much time at all. The bouncy, propulsive music theme also keeps your head in the groove without distracting you from pulling together each stage's solution. It can get a bit monotonous, yeah, but it can reach an almost zen-like state, leaving you focused and attuned to each task at hand. But when it comes to the visual novel side of things, Helltaker doesn't do too much with it. The dialogue feels criminally underutilized. This is strange because even as a semi-satire of the subgenre itself, the character designs still convey the narrative info well. Each character is illustrated with a shocking amount of definition, and as stated earlier, the art alone delivers a lot of on-the-spot personality. It just would have been far more interesting if the dialogue choices were fleshed out just a bit more, or simply had more paths to choose. It would have made completing each stage more rewarding, as the player could have gotten to know each girl further. This could have simply been due to the game's imposed limitations as a free project, which is understandable, but considering just how excellent each character is personality-wise, it's hard to not want more. The last major sequence against Judgment is a major curveball though, moving away from the slower, more thoughtful puzzle gameplay into a pseudo bullet hell that requires fast reflexes and spot-on coordination. While it definitely provides a challenge and turns the game's established mechanics on their head, it's a jarring shift that isn't introduced particularly smoothly. Nothing really prepares you for this change in gameplay style, especially after such intense, contemplative puzzle stages in the last leg of the main campaign. This being said, even though it doesn't fit the game's established pacing, it shows a remarkable amount of versatility in the game's simple design, letting the developer color outside the lines just enough to make things feel both climactic and pretty surprising in its design too. Helltaker stays true to the simple description on its Steam store page, a short game about sharply dressed demon girls. Even under that humble and almost self-dismissive mindset, it's an entertaining game that rarely feels frustrating, but also competently weaves a cute and compelling world amongst its gameplay, the kind of accessible appeal that could easily work on practically any hardware. What you see is what you get, charismatic Hellion women and a puzzle game that does all it can to not overstay its welcome. It's a curious prospect considering whether Helltaker could have been longer or more complex. If the game continues to rise in popularity, I could see it becoming a more involved experience. Like many freeware games of old, Helltaker could eventually be released as a longer, fully priced experience on other digital distribution services. But right now, I can't really fault its brevity. Helltaker feels like a pet project, a game without sky-high ambitions that's made solely because the dev wanted to make something fun and cute for fans to play. In some circles, that might be considered the true mantra of freeware, but regardless, Helltaker succeeds by that measure alone. Give it a download. You might just have a hell of a time.